You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Welcome back to RBLR Lightning. My name is Jake Ricker, as always, with my good friend and co-host Matt Gannon. Matt, we are back. We are talking some more Lightning hockey. It's like full swing of the season now. We are underway here, getting ready to go. It's still early, but we are in full drive for the 2022 to 2023 hockey season. I'm super excited. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good, Jake. The honeymoon phase is over. We are completely in on the season now. It's been up and down so far. I'm not ready to hit the panic button just quite yet, but we've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to cover, but again, we're now fully entrenched in this season. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, and you're right about the panic button, and we'll get to all the game recaps and break them down here in just a second, but it's been a less than ideal start, I think, for Lightning fans. Obviously, you don't want to be sitting at 3-4 right now, way at the bottom of the division, and even though there's still a lot of hockey left to be played, I think for Bolts fans, it's, they're used to, we talked about this last time on the show, is that they're used to winning. They're used to being at the top. And then when you have these kind of weird games where things aren't going your way, it's frustrating. And you're like, what's going on? This isn't the Bolts team I was watching last year. What's up? But don't worry. We will break it all down. We'll tell you what's going on. We'll try to give you our best thoughts and opinions and all that good stuff. But let's start off with the game recaps, and we'll start with the Philadelphia Flyers. That was the last game that we did not recap since the last show. But this was the home opener for the Lightning, the first game at Amalie Arena. I know they were talking about before the game. Cooper was saying that the guys were excited to be back at Amalie Arena. They had been on a very long road trip. The only home game they had before this one was the one preseason game, and that was the only home game that they had. So they were excited to be back at Amalie Arena for a regular season game. And unfortunately, the Philadelphia Flyers spoiled that as they defeated the Lightning by a final score of 3-2. And Matt, this was a weird one because the Lightning go up early and they look fantastic. Steven Stamkos, 2 goals. The Lightning are up 2-0 with Stamkos scoring both of them on the power play. And then the Flyers, they just claw their way back in. And then that third period was pretty disastrous for the Lightning overall. And the Flyers win it 3-2. So what are your thoughts on this Flyers game overall in the home opener?
I noticed some improvements over games past, especially early on in the game. Like if you just, looking at the box score, I mean, you see, the faceoffs were way up. I know Nick Paul really kind of cemented himself as a true great faceoff guy in this game. You could tell that they were trying to hit on a lot of things, especially trying to work on their 5-on-5 game, which it was looking good at first, and then just kind of everything, hit a wall. I think they not got complacent, got lazy, but just, the effort wasn't there after those 2 power play goals by Stamkos. I mean, he can't be the only one that's really putting in effort. Of course, over, the next 3 games, a lot has changed, but it was just kind of a weird game. I don't know if they had, a little bit of the yips, first game at home or whatever, but full credit to the Flyers. They've had a tremendous start to the season, especially given what they were projected to be. They're supposed to be in the Bedard sweepstakes, and John Tortorella, he's really taken this team and made them something. Carter Hart, he's been playing phenomenal hockey as well, but I don't know. You can't rely so much on your power play. Again, there were some noticeable improvements here and there, but you could tell it just still wasn't one of my biggest complaints last year. And, it's an easy thing to complain about, but it wasn't a full 60 minutes of good, honest hockey. You could see that they just, the effort wasn't there later on in the game and just got a little complacent.
Something special is clearly going on in Philly with the Phillies in the World Series. The Eagles are 6-0 right now, and then the Flyers off to this good start. I need the water that they're drinking apparently because they got something going on. But you're absolutely right about the effort. And I think that's what frustrated a lot of Lightning fans in this game because you especially saw in that third period, I believe it was Eric Chernak who had a really bad turnover right in the middle of the ice that led to a Flyers goal where they're just sitting right in the slot. And Vasilevsky just had no chance at stopping that shot any which way how he tried.
Well, that
So
was the game-winning goal, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah, it was the
Late in
game-winning
the
goal.
third.
And I believe the other one was a defensive turnover as well. I think it might have been an odd man rush if I remember correctly. It's been a little while now, but
I know the first goal that they scored, it was a Corey Perry turnover. And I've liked what I've seen from Corey Perry so far. Throughout the start of the season, it looks like vintage Corey Perry. But in 2 straight games, he had 2 pizzas right into the center of the ice with nobody ready to get it, and they led to some stinging goals.
One of them was on the power play as well. And then there was the Eric Chernak turnover, which was probably the worst one and the most memorable one. But it was that third period. The third period, they just kind of fell apart and the effort you could see was gone. And they dropped another one that they probably should have won. And again, you're sitting there at this point saying, okay, it's early. We're only a couple games in. Let's see how the boys respond when they get ready to take on Florida. And Florida's a very good team, even though they've had to deal with some injuries. They've still been very successful as they always have been in the regular season. But Matt, the Lightning are still the bigger brother of this series as the Lightning once again beat the Florida Panthers by a final score of 3-2 in overtime. But a much needed win for the Lightning to get their confidence back. Steven Stamkos, of course, continuing his scoring streak, scoring a goal early in this game. Braden Point, finally got on the board himself. That was a big one. And then, of course, who else but him to score the OT winners? He had 2 goals in this game. But I think it was overall just a much better performance from the Lightning than we saw against the Flyers. Wasn't a perfect game by any means, but they looked so much better, and they finished all the way through and fought through over against a good Florida Panthers team. So I was really, really happy about this win.
Yeah, and I'm not wearing like my rose-colored glasses like, oh, it was a much better game just because we won. Not at all. It was just a much more complete game. You could tell that everybody, especially John Cooper, but everybody was disappointed with how that Philadelphia game went just because it was under control. They just let it slip away from them. I'm not going to use the trope, oh, we beat ourselves or whatever, but they let it get away from them. And you could tell that, they thrive playing the Panthers. There's, only so many teams. There's like 2 other teams in this league that, if the Lightning are playing them, they match their energy. It's just back and forth hockey. And they just really tighten things down defensively against the Panthers as well. I don't think they had a single odd man rush until about midway through the third period. The Panthers have a great transition game that I thought the Lightning stifled very well. They did have some good chances off the rush, but still managed. Vasilevsky, he held down the fort, of course. But again, it was just a much more refined, better game all around, in my opinion. I still think there were a couple of shaky moments here and there, but overall, it was a much improved performance. That the team was trying to prove stuff to not only themselves, but to their coach. And we know nobody's job's in jeopardy, nothing like that. But still, when you play at such a high level, you are expected to be the best team. You have been the best team for the better part of a decade now. Almost. I'm embellishing a bit, but it was about time we saw this side of them. I still don't think that, everybody's all there. Of course, we're, really, we're missing some key pieces in Cirelli. I think that's extremely noticeable right now. But again, I'm being long-winded with, my recap here. It was just a much better, more refined game overall. They matched the Panthers rather well. We did have we had a lot more time on the power play, in this game than other games, but that's just what happens when you got a really fast game. We weren't perfect either in the penalty department. I think there were a couple of careless penalties there that we didn't need, but of course it's the NHL. They have to get it as close as possible to be a fair game.
Right. And the penalty kill was fantastic in this game, going 5 for 5, shutting down the Panthers, who, even tried to throw out their famous five forward power play, which has never worked against us. I don't know why they keep doing it, but they were successful at killing that off. And then the power play 2 for 7, which doesn't seem great on paper, but when you have that many power plays, you're not going to score on all of them. So still wasn't bad, and much better than the Panthers, obviously, who went 0 for 5. But the big thing in this game, Matt, that I think even if we did end up losing this one, I think Lightning fans would have had fun with this game, because rookie defenseman Nick Perbix, who's been up for just a couple of games now, had one of the best hits in honestly, it might be the hit of the season. I say that because he took out Matthew Tkachuk and just put him right into the ground, knocked his helmet right off of him. Tkachuk, I think he was making a turn to get ready to come back up ice, wasn't paying attention, and Perbix put him right into the ground. And it was really great to see for Lightning fans. Just good to see Perbix getting into it, and you could tell he was buying into this rivalry, if you will, these two teams that don't like each other, and he was ready there and prepared to make the physical play. So I really love that from him. And the only thing that made it sweeter was that the fact how Tkachuk was talking about how, there was a team in Florida who had all this success and he was here to change that. Well, buddy, welcome to Florida. Welcome to this series. Yeah. And I'm sure he's going to remember that one as he gets put down in the ice and his team loses 3-2 in overtime.
That Perbix hit, it was great. It was one thing if it was just, random generated player, NHL, Joe NHL. It'd be a great hit if it were just him, but it being on Matthew Tkachuk, oh, it's sweet. Chef's kiss, knocking the bucket off and everything. And it was great how it actually went down, because the puck came to Perbix and Matt Tkachuk, he was trying to steal the puck away. Perbix said, and put the body into him. It wasn't overly, a huge hit or nothing like that, but it was solid. I think Tkachuk was
knocked his helmet off.
Not expecting, him to be that sturdy. And we got to also remember, Perbix is like 25 or 26. Like he's
24.
Not at all.
He's my age.
He's 24. Okay. Oh, geez. Okay. My bad. -1. But still, he's not a young guy by any means. And, I think Tkachuk was just trying to get a little fancy with a no-name rookie. But this game really, it turned me on to Nick Perbix 100%. I thought he's been, out of all the 3 rookies that we've had play for us this year, Koepke, Fortier, and Perbix, I think Perbix has stuck out the most. Not even with just this hit. Again, I'm not wearing the rose-colored glasses or anything like that, but just throughout, all the ice, he was very, very noticeable in a good way. He did have a couple of miscues in some games later on this week that I do want to bring up, but again, yeah, I think he's been fitting in rather well with, I can't imagine he's gonna stick around for a bit once everybody's healthy, but he's making a strong case for a spot in the lineup down the road.
Absolutely. And we'll get to that in a little bit, talking about our defense, because I think there's some interesting things going on with that whole core. But he was great in this game. This was a great game for the Lightning to get back on in the win column and pick up those 2 points against the Florida Panthers. The next game for the Lightning was on the second half of back-to-back, as the Lightning have played in so many back-to-back games to start off the season. It's kind of crazy, but they would take on the New York Islanders at home at NYI Arena. So the Lightning not only looking to continue their win streak here, actually pick up their first win streak of the season, but also bounce back and pick up a win at home after losing to the Flyers. And they did just that. This was probably the best game the Lightning have played all season, I would say. I'm not sure if you're going to agree with me on that, Matt. But 5-3 was your final, and you got a lot of people mixing into things here. It wasn't just Stamkos who was the only one that was scoring. Braden Point, he's back on the score sheet. Brandon Hagel gets his first of the season. My 30-goal score that I predicted from earlier finally gets one on the board. Corey Perry got on the board as well. Nick Paul, which we'll get to that goal. That was one of the best goals that we've had this season. That was a ton of fun. And then Alex Killorn as well, finally breaking that streak. I mean, how many games was it, Matt? It was something ridiculous. I think we talked about it before.
I want to say it was almost half a season's worth.
Yeah,
it was more.
It was a lot, but he finally breaks that streak. That
includes playoffs, but it's still, almost, if not more, half a season's worth.
Yeah.
So he really needed that.
He definitely did. He got that goal, and the Lightning win this one 5-3. They pick up 2 wins in a row, especially on the back-to-back, and they were now back to even at 500 at 3-3 at that point. That was a great win for the Lightning, and I think a lot of Lightning fans kind of sat there and said, "All right, this is the Lightning team we know. That we look like we might be back here."
Yeah, so to me, I think you said this might be our best game of the season so far, but I wouldn't say best, but I'd say probably the most complete. One thing that I, take into account when I'm, I guess, grading a game is momentum swings. Do you let that momentum carry you down? Do you like get in those slumps throughout the game? Do you have a bad couple of shifts? Do you have a whole bad period? I don't think that there was, there were a couple of a number of times where they were hemmed into the zone in this game. The Islanders, they check hard and they were really trying to leave their mark, but I don't think that the momentum swings were extremely, dragging us down. We couldn't really, find a way out of it, but they bounced back great when they were getting, hemmed into their zone. They weren't letting it, affect their play. If you can get a new line on and start to transition some of that momentum. We saw that a lot. It was with the Nick Paul and the Killorn goals. They were coming off of two dominant shifts from the Islanders where, not that they should have had a goal, but they definitely could have had 2 goals. Lightning comes straight back up the ice and score, Nick Paul scores that beautiful buzzer beater goal, and then Alex Killorn scores that goal. Both of those goals came 30 seconds before the Lightning were trapped in their own zone for, about, a minute, if not more. So I don't think the momentum swings were, as bad as they had been in previous games where it's dragging them down and affecting their play. So to me, I'd say it probably was their most complete game of the year so far, but I wouldn't call it their best game of the year so far. Again, there's still a couple of bad plays, and I'm not going to, over criticize anybody on these bad plays, but this is the big Corey Perry turnover. It was the first goal of the game. It ended up not really mattering a whole lot, but it was just a blind backhand pass into the center of the ice, and Matt Martin took it and sniped it. So,
well, and luckily he made up for it with a goal of his own to get that one back too. You're right though. I think complete game is a better way to put it there. And obviously, we've played that was 6 games in the season at that point. So it's clearly there's going to be better games as we go on. There's going to be worse games as we go on. So season is still extremely young. But I want to talk about the Nick Paul goal specifically because boy was that Nick Paul. I'll tell you what. Hagel was kind of the one that was looked at as the bigger trade out of the two when the Lightning made that move at the deadline. But Nick Paul has been the guy. I mean, he can seriously, people talk about how Nick Paul can do it all, his little nickname that he has with the Lightning, but he can seriously do it all. I mean, he's a tough penalty killer. He's a tough physical forward. He's got a great shot. He's got speed. I mean, how many times have we seen him turn on the jets and half these defenders are like, oh, this guy can skate. I have to be ready for this. And he scores with 0.01 seconds left. And when I say 0.01, it wasn't like it was 0.3 and I'm just rounding. It was seriously 0.1 seconds left in the second period to give the Lightning a 2-goal lead again going into the third period, which proved to be huge as well as the Islanders eventually scored early in that third period to make it 4-3, but it could have been 3-3 had he not scored that goal. But just never giving up on the play. Didn't matter what the clock was. Took a beautiful shot and put it in the back of the net. Nick Paul continues to be a top player for the Lightning.
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody has off nights. Every single buddy. I don't care if you're Wayne Gretzky, Nick Lidstrom, everybody has off nights. But since he's came to this team, he has put it all on the table every single night. I don't have a bad word to say about him. I can criticize Vasilevsky, anybody on the team, Hedman, Kucherov easily, Stamkos, but Nick Paul, he never gives it up. And yeah, in this game especially, he really kind of, not that he had a slow start to the season, but it being his first goal, it kind of definitely warmed him up a bit. And he's extremely noticeable away from the puck as well. So I really thought that he had a phenomenal game and has been phenomenal since, even if he's not on the score sheet, which he's not expected to every night. He's a middle 6 forward, if not, a bottom 6 forward. He's just so versatile. You can put him anywhere. It's hard to put a tag around him at all. He was just terrific last night. So I'm glad you brought that up, Jake, because you got me all flustered here. I'm a Nick Paul's #1 fan.
He's been fantastic, and his play would continue as well. And his contract has already paid off, and we've barely even seen the full Nick Paul experience. So it's been exciting to watch. At that point, though, Lightning, again, as I mentioned, at 3-3 in the season, they were starting to get back into the swing of things, it looked like. And then, of course, we have the West Coast road trip that we are currently on. 3 games all on the West Coast. 2 of them super late. One of them actually kind of midday for us, but earlier in the day for the West Coast. And these games, they're always tough, Matt, because you stay up. It's a long wait for the game, and then you finally get to game time, and if you win, you're like, that was great. I'm really tired, though. I'm going to bed. Or you might have missed it because you got work in the morning. And then if you lose, it's like, I stayed up till 1 a.m. and we just lost this game. This is even more frustrating than normal. And unfortunately for the Lightning, this was an extremely frustrating game as they do drop this one by a final score of 4-2. The Lightning had won, I think, like the last 7 games against the Kings with Andrei Vasilevsky. So, it's been a one-sided affair for the most part. But early on, it looked like this was the Lightning's game to win. They were playing really well. I think most people were saying, like, for the first period and half of the second, they were playing really well. Even though the Kings scored the first goal on what I think was kind of a garbage goal, even though it was a goal, but it was a player falling into the net, and then just the puck bounced in. It was unlucky. Dude tied up and go 1-1. Again, they're looking better. And then the second period happens, and everything just fell apart. The Kings go up 3-1, and you're still thinking they got a chance. Kings go up 4-1. Kucherov does eventually score, but at that point, it didn't much matter, and the Lightning just could not get anything going. They did have a 5-on-3 during the third period. They did have one goal, too, that got called back because of an offsides, which was extremely frustrating. So just I think frustrating is the word to describe this game. It was just a annoying experience, especially for Lightning fans who are staying up late to watch that one. And they unfortunately dropped this one. But I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Matt, but for me, it was like they showed they were right back into how they were playing against Florida and New York and playing well against LA. And then same thing like with Philly. Good start, bad finish.
It really is reminiscent of that Philly game. I'm a little mixed about this one because I like the Kings. I'm cheering for them this year. I'm a huge Jonathan Quick fan. I mean, he's one of the first jerseys I've ever got. I fell in love with Jonathan Quick. And he had a tremendous game, and he needed this. I'm saying this as an unbiased fan. Of course, I wanted the Lightning to win, especially if I'm going to stay up until, damn near 2:00 in the morning for it, getting up at 7. I wanted to win for sure, but I don't know what it was. But after a certain point, the Kings were, from what I've watched from them this year, they've had trouble holding leads. Not as bad as Vancouver, but they would get a lead and just they doing exactly what they did last night. Was everybody saw it. They weren't forechecking. They weren't doing anything. They were standing just inside of their own blue line, just waiting to defend. They honestly shut down scoring in the second period. They didn't care about it. They're up 3-1 by this point, so they were protecting this lead. So good on them. They've adjusted because, again, I watched them a good bit. I tried to at least, and so at least they're adjusting. The Lightning just didn't really have an answer. Kings transition game was really good. Brant Clark, this is not a Kings podcast. I'm sorry, but
Matt, the closet Kings fan over here. We got Eureka, the producer, who's the closet Colorado fan. What's going on over here? This is RBLR Lightning, guys.
Listen, as much as I am a biased Homer fan, I have to look at it from both sides. So I'm happy to see that the Kings are adjusting their game and have learned from their mistakes earlier on in this season. I just wish they wouldn't have done it against my beloved Lightning. So again, the Kings, they really needed this win. Jonathan Quick looked great, but again, reminiscent of the Philly game, they just kind of, not that they gave up as much, they didn't get as complacent, but the Kings were defending well, and the Lightning just didn't really seem to be creative enough, hungry enough to really have an answer. I doubt that they were as tired as we all were watching this game, especially me. They get a pregame nap. I don't. So I'm not too sure what it was. There a little bit of sloppy play. A few bright spots in this game is, at least up until now, I don't think Victor Hedman has quite been himself, but last night he was looking a lot better.
He was fantastic.
Defending really well, especially going 11-7, which is kind of I don't know. Quickly, how do you feel about the 11-7? Obviously, it's not great. It didn't work last night. Do we know if they're going to go with that again tonight against Anaheim, or do you think we'll stuff that in the storage closet and break it out another time this season?
I don't know. I know Cooper likes to go 11-7. I didn't mind the 11-7 last night. Again, they looked good early. It was just that, kind of that third period and half of that second period where they started to struggle. I would expect them to go 11-7 again tonight against the Ducks. Of course, as of this recording, they have not played the Ducks. When you're listening to this, they probably already have. But if I had to guess, I would imagine they go 11-7 against the Ducks. Cooper loves to use that, and especially with all the defenders that we have right now that are, for the most part, playing well, which we'll get to in just a minute here. I wouldn't be surprised to see them going again. So I would say 11-7 coming up. But
I definitely wouldn't mind it, especially when you have I'm going to struggle to call it an embarrassment of riches of defensemen, because they're not all, terrific, Norris winning defensemen, but a lot of them are NHL caliber defensemen, in these bottom pairings. Again, I was raving about Perbix earlier. He's fit in just fine. He had a great chance this game. I can't remember if he shot it wide or did he shoot it wide, or did Quick get some?
No, it was on net. It was stopped by Quick. It was that play where I think Sergachev was able to fight off a couple defenders, dropped it off to Perbix, and he just walked right down Broadway and had a great chance. And he put a good shot on. It was a powerful shot, but Quick just made the stop.
And even after that chance, he managed to get the puck back. Just that shift, it was a great shift by Perbix. After that chance, he managed to get the puck back probably about 15, 20 seconds later, and started playing forward. He was taking it behind the net, and he was fighting off checks, fighting off slashes, and he was really getting involved in the play instead of just sit down, shut up, do your job, defend, whatever. No, he was looking to make an impact on this game. So again, I can't say enough about how much I've liked him. Again, he's not been perfect at all. He was kind of a factor in the first Kings goal. I don't think he was as aggressive enough, defending well enough on that, but what are you going to do?
Well, one defender that I thought did struggle in this game was Ian Cole. I don't think he had a good game. He had a couple of turnovers. They did not defend a couple of plays well that led to some Kings goals. He had a penalty in this game as well. Ian Cole did not impress me in this one.
No, Drew Doughty had 2 penalties. No, Ian Cole, he had a so-so game. He wasn't too noticeable. I remember there was one play late in the early in the third where it was a clear chance to, I can't remember who in front for the Kings, but first the Kings player fanned on it and Vasilevsky was ready for it, but it was a lucky bounce that came right in front of too far for Vasilevsky, but came right to the Kings player. It just kind of bobbled off his stick, but Ian Cole was right there to shut it down, even if Vasilevsky couldn't have made the stop. So that was one thing that stuck out to me. He did have a couple of good shot blocks, but yeah, again, he was a little careless with the puck in his own zone, and did make me pucker up a couple of times, but I don't think he was maybe as bad as you might think, but he definitely wasn't top 3, I'd say.
No, definitely. Hedman was the best defender out there by far. He was really impressive, as you mentioned. Actually, let's before we get more into this, let's transition here because I want to talk about the defense. But so the Lightning currently sitting at 3-4, of course, as of this recording after that loss to the Kings. I don't think there's any reason to panic right now. I know sometimes when people keep saying, "Oh, it's early," these games aren't that important. They are, and these games can make a huge difference when it comes down to positioning or standings late in the season. But as Cooper, I think Cooper said it too. He's like, listen, if we're doing this 40, 50 games in, then it's a problem. But it's still early, and the Lightning do this all the time where they kind of slow their roll early and get used to being back in hockey shape and then start to play better. So, and luckily for them, they're normally pretty comfortable in a playoff spot. So these games that they lose early in the season usually don't matter too much. But
one thing I do want to mention is that the schedule has not been kind to them so far. And I'm not going to use it as a crutch.
True.
I'm not going to use that as an excuse by any means, because everybody's kind of going through it right now, but they've only had 2 home games and 5 or 6 away games.
And 3 back-to-backs.
And 3 back-to-backs already. So it's not been kind to them by any means. And they've had some pretty rough travel. I mean, they went from, where Philly to, or no, we played in Philly, but to Pittsburgh, back to Florida. Just they've been all over the place, and now they're in California. They're going to do that road trip. They're midway through it. It's just not been kind to them so far. It's been some pretty hectic travel. So, a lot of people are complaining. I get it's just complaining from the fans, but they're like, oh, why aren't there any home games early in the season? A lot of people don't like that. Me personally, I do, because then you can kind of carry a little more momentum heading into the postseason, have a stronger finish. Of course, everybody's record is better at home. The Lightning have, notoriously not been a great away team, been a great home team. So again, that's just my 2 cents. It's why one of the reasons I attribute to the slow start.
It is a fair point to bring up, and I think we mentioned this last time too. Home games are coming in the month of November. The Lightning only have 3 away games total. All the other ones are home, so it's a home heavy schedule for the Lightning in November. And I think they only have 1 back-to-back, if I'm looking at the schedule correctly, in that month. So things definitely get easier for the Lightning come November here after this West Coast road trip. I want to talk about the defense here, though, Matt, because I think there's an interesting situation, if you will, that's developing. Because you look at the light. So when we started the season, right, you lost McDonough, you lost Ruda, and you're thinking, all right, we're going to need some guys to replace him, and hopefully some people step up, and then we'll be okay. But I almost feel like we've had a surplus of defensemen at this point. Because you look at, so of course you got Hedman, Sergachev, all those guys that are, and Cernak, who are going to be in there night in, night out. But then you have Cal Foote, Nick Perbix, Ian Cole, Bogosian, who is injured, but will come back eventually. And not to mention Myers and Hayden Fleury, who I think for the most part, all of them have been pretty good. I really loved Myers. I've really been impressed with Fleury personally. I think he had a little bit of a shaky game last night against the Kings, but I think Fleury and Myers have both been great, especially Myers. Ian Cole's been all right, and I haven't been too impressed with Foote. He doesn't seem like he's been taking this jump that we've been wanting him to do for the last couple of seasons here. And I'll pitch it to you like this, Matt, as a question. Could you see the Lightning going, and maybe some kind of package deal later down the road, but could you see the Lightning trading someone like Cal Foote at the trade deadline to bolster their roster up somewhere else, because we have a surplus of defensemen right now?
Absolutely. I've been far from impressed with Cal Foote, especially last night. I think he really struggled. There were a couple of times where he just looked lost out there. To me, he was I hate to say this about my own guys, but he was the worst player on the team last night. He wasn't as bad as Ian Cole as you think he was. But Cal
Foote,
make
a save with his derriere, so there was that.
He did do that. That was actually a great play. I'm sorry, -2 for me. But again, overall, I don't think he's been fantastic this year. He has not taken that next step that we've all expected, especially with the pedigree. He was like a 19th overall pick or something. And he just really isn't getting there. So I do like that idea, Jake. I've known it's been thrown around, especially in the offseason, about using Cal Foote as a potential trade chip coming up, because the Lightning, they're never quiet on deadline day. Never quiet on deadline day. And it always seems to work out for them. The thing is, he's got to have some value to him. I know a lot of teams will take him if they If they just waived him for whatever reason, he would get claimed in an instant because he can be a project to a certain team. He might need a change of scenery. He's got potential. He's got that first round potential, but he's just yet to really show it on this team yet. He doesn't really have many opportunities to being buried so far down in the lineup. Sometimes a healthy scratch, but, on such a strong team with such a strong defense, he's not going to have those opportunities. So I like him, but I'm not at all attached to him. So I really think that they could probably, if it's just not working, maybe sell high and maybe get more value, I guess, before the deadline, because everything gets inflated at the trade deadline. Everybody wants an arm and a leg and a skate and a stick for nothing. So I think maybe kind of a couple of weeks before the deadline, maybe even a month or two before the deadline, which is early March, I want to say. I can see them. I definitely see them using him as a potential trade piece.
And it's still early, obviously, a long time before the trade deadline. And the ideal thing is that Foot becomes a great defender and we don't have to worry about that and we can just keep him. But it does seem to me we've got a lot of guys that are playing well, especially in that bottom six role in Myers and Fleury. Myers hasn't been too noticeable the last couple of games, but that's usually a good thing for a defenseman. So I really liked a lot of our defensemen in these recent games, and Foot hasn't done it for me. So I could see him potentially being packaged in some kind of trade, maybe to bolster something, depending on how things play out the rest of the season. It's a good problem to have, honestly.
The way Lightning trades work, he'll flourish somewhere else. So
that's true. Usually when teams are like, "Ooh, former Lightning players, heck yeah, we'll take those guys."
Taylor Radish, he's already got 2 goals. He's outscoring Patrick Kane right now. Matthew Joseph, I don't know if he hasn't been too fancy. He hasn't been great in Ottawa just yet, but he's playing like 4th line minutes or whatever. He was great last year. But
think about JT Miller,
Marchessault.
There's one other one too that I can't think of.
Ryan McDonough, he's been pretty good so far.
JT
Miller, he hasn't had a great start to the season, but he's had a couple of great years since he's left the Lightning.
Right, exactly.
Granted, the first we got for him turned into Blake Coleman, which is the other one. Verhaeghe, yeah. We kind of knew what he was. We couldn't really afford him, couldn't really fit him in the lineup. No point in playing him in the bottom 6. These trades all make sense. They're not like, oh, we got fleeced or anything. I think the outcome has been tremendous on all of these trades. I'm just saying that these players, a lot of them needed a change of scenery, for their betterment, but it also ended up working in the Lightning's favor. When was the last time we got absolutely fleeced? I guess you could call the McDonough trade a fleecing, but we needed the cap space, so that
I wouldn't
evens it out. Mm-hmm. It was a good trade for Nashville for sure, but I guess to the organization, the cap space was more important than the player.
The Lightning had to do it. They had no choice. Yeah, it was a better trade for Nashville, especially on paper, but I don't know if I'd call it a fleecing, but no. It was definitely beneficial to Nashville. But it's going to be interesting to watch the defense and see who really secures those top 6 roles, and maybe if the Lightning decide to move on from somebody, who knows? I don't know how that'll all play out, but it's going to be something to keep your eye on for sure if you're a Lightning fan, and it's a good problem to have. Before we get on to our next topic, I think it's time we go for our weekly segment that we have here for Bolts of the Week. So I'm going to go through them 1, 2, 3, and then Matt, I'll have you give your thoughts on them. I'll give some thoughts as well. But for number 1, we have Braden Point. He was fantastic this week. Multiple goals. Maybe had 3 total goals this week. He was fantastic. Really seemed like he was on another level and making sure he got back to that, that classic Braden Point right in front of the net type of player. The second star of the week that we have is Brandon Hagel. He was fantastic this week as well. 2 goals. And he had a couple of games where he was just flying around the ice, specifically that LA game. He was really good in that one too, where he was just on another level, it seemed like, and he's really starting to fit into his role here with Tampa, which is good to see. Hopefully that continues and he can become that player that Lightning fans hoped. And then for the third star, we have Nick Perbix. This one might be a little controversial here, but listen, anytime you're able to put Matthew Tkachuk down on the ice and make his quote look silly, that's a star in my book.
Yeah, Braden Point, he looks like the Point we all know and love. When he tried to come back for those 2 games in the playoffs, you could tell he was a shell of like what we know him to be. And there's just no point in playing on an injured leg if you're not 100%. Like, what is Braden Point's best skill, Jake?
Speed.
Absolutely. It's his speed. So if you can't use your speed, he's still got great hands. He's still got great sense, but that's his absolute best skill. You can't play him like that. He looks fully healthy. He's speedy as ever. He's really starting to look like, the playoff Braden Point, who we all know and love. So I'm happy to see that he's back and he's, getting off to a pretty good start here. I hope he keeps up. We all know he can. And yeah, Brandon Hagel as well. He has been a hound the last couple of games, especially like you said in the Los Angeles game and also against the Islanders. Of course, yeah, he scored goals in both those games. Yeah. Not even just that, he's just been extremely noticeable everywhere on the ice. He's been responsible, and I think, I'm happy to see he's starting to get some actual ice time with Point and Kucherov. Like Michael, I'm not a big fan of the big 3. Sometimes it works, especially, if you are going 11-7, you can play around with your forward lines a bit, but you have to develop chemistry. You can't just put, X guy on X line and expect it to gel immediately. And we know Brandon Hagel's got it in him. Of course, he, was a different player last year when he was in Tampa than when he was in Chicago. He was playing with Patrick Kane. Of course you're going to score goals. So it's nice to see him taking the next step here in Tampa. I hope I'm not, putting a jinx on it or anything, but you can tell that there is something brewing there. And as far as Perbix, you heard me raving about him earlier. He again, I think for all the rookies this year, he's fit in the best so far. He had some really great chances. He's been great with the puck. Of course, he has some rookie miscues and whatever, but for me, he's really stuck out. So I think those 3 bolts of the week are a great choice by you, Jake. So I couldn't agree more.
And we
Nick
love to hear
Paul,
from
honorable mention.
Nick, yes, I agree. Nick Paul, honorable mention. And we'd love to hear from you guys who are listening at home as well. Be sure to tweet us at RBLR Sports. Let us know who you think should be on the Bolts of the Week. Did we get the list right, or is there somebody else that we might have missed? Love to hear from you guys as well. But the next topic that we're going to talk about today, Matt, I am so excited for. We were talking about it for so long on so many shows, waiting for the release, and it's finally here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lightning have released their reverse retro jerseys, and of course, they are the Storm jerseys coming back. I am thrilled, Matt. I don't know about you. We'll get your thoughts here in just a minute, but I am super excited. I think they look fantastic, but let's go through some of the details for those of you that may not have seen it. But the Lightning, of course, going with their old classic Storm jerseys, the reverse retro, and there's a couple of differences. Instead of the dark navy blue as the base of the jersey and then that black wave at the bottom, they went with a white jersey, a white base, and then a blue wave at the bottom. And that's really the biggest differences on these jerseys. Everything else is pretty much the same. I think they cleaned up the rain a little bit, and they did do 2 alternating colors. There's some blue quote unquote rain and some gray marks on there as well. But other than that, everything is pretty much the same. They did also change, I believe, the wave actually is a continuous all the way around. It's much more clean, if you will, which I really like. And then of course you have the old reverse retro NHL logo on the top of the jersey as well. So very similar to the original Storm jerseys, but for me, I think it's a home run, 10 out of 10 out of the park. I know the Storm jerseys are a very controversial one for a lot of Lightning fans, because you've got people saying like, they're so ugly. That doesn't look like us. That's not who we are as a franchise. But I think for what the reverse retro is supposed to be, I think that's why it's perfect, right? The reverse retro is supposed to be a retro jersey from your past, which the Lightning don't have a ton. I mean, what else were you going to do at this point? You could have done maybe your second, but it's not that old. And by second, I mean the second logo they had. There's not much else you could have done with the reverse retro. And the other part of this is, to have fun. And that's exactly what they did. They had fun with it. They did the retro reverse of one of their old jerseys. So that's why for me, I think it's a home run. And I think the Storm jersey is just a little bit of fun. It's going to get people's attention when you walk down the streets, and it's a fun story. So yes, it's not a beautiful jersey and not something you would wear night in, night out, which they won't be doing, but I think it's a fantastic jersey. Matt, what about you?
My theme of the show has been being an unbiased fan, and I will continue that as an unbiased fan. Phenomenal. 10 out of 10. They are perfect. I was, after all the leaks and whatnot, you'd see a couple different designs, and I was liking them for sure. But there were a couple of things I pointed out, I was like, oh, I don't like the blue there, whatever. When I saw the actual reveal, my jaw dropped. Again, I'm not blowing smoke, nothing like that. They are phenomenal. I would lobby for them to wear this night in and night out. If they made a solid color version of it, do it. 100% do it. I'm getting these for sure. Were you saying something?
Well, I was just agreeing with you in that. I think and I'm going to get one myself as well, for sure. It is funny, though, because we're both here just saying, oh, unbelievable, perfect jerseys. There are a lot of people that don't like them, which I understand. They are, they're not your traditional jersey. But again, for the reasons I explained, I think they did a very good job. But definitely not everybody is enjoying them. I think for the most part, like even outside of the Lightning fan base, people who understand what this jersey is, the Lightning have had highly ranked reverse retro jerseys both times. People loved our original one that we did, which I did it as well. And then people who kind of get the idea here like this one as well. So it seems like the Lightning have knocked out of the park twice with these reverse retro jerseys.
And one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of the other teams' jerseys, like there's some really good ones. I hate to admit it, but Florida's jerseys, they look great. But there's some others that are a little. There's some others that a lot of people are complaining that I'm agreeing with that are boring, like, Detroit and Chicago's. They almost look like the exact same. They're extremely retro to the point where there's just not a lot going on. And, a reverse retro year where it seems like a lot of other teams took that extra step, went a little bit more eccentric with it. And the excuse for some of these boring jerseys, like, oh, well, you got to see it with the full kit on. You got to see the pants and the socks and the gloves and whatnot. And I get that all these jerseys will look much better on a full outfitted player. But what makes this is that it's one of the jerseys that it looks great just by itself. You don't have to, use the crutch. Oh, it'll look better on a jersey. No, it looks phenomenal as it is. And it only gets better because it will look way better when you're fully kitted out. Like they've got they've always had the bolt pants, but they're going to do a new retro bolt pants. They're going to come out with a whole new, pair of pants, socks. It's going to be tremendous. I need them to do it more than 6 times this year. It's a shame that's how many times they're doing it, 6 or 7. But oh man, I can't get enough of them.
So I'll go into it is 6, and there's a reason for it, and it makes sense, but it's also kind of disappointing at the same time. I'll read you guys some of this information for those that are wondering. If you want to buy them, by the way, they are already sold out for the pre-sale. They went pretty quickly. They are planning to have more in store on, I believe it's November 17th. Of course, you can get them third party. Cool Hockey is always a fantastic website for those, quality. What's the word I'm looking for here? Legitimate jerseys. But they are sold out from the team store pre-sale, but they will have them November 17th back in store, depending. And then they said they might have some more online depending on the stock. They kind of handled this rollout really weird in the fact that they kept it super minimal. And then they're saying that, well, we'll see how many jerseys we get. And then we might have some more online, and there's no customization either, which I think is really disappointing. I don't love that, but it is what it is. They are rolling them out though, and they will be back in store for people who want to buy them. And then for the dates, they're wearing them 6 times this season. And the reason for that is that when the Lightning originally debuted their Storm jersey, they wore those 6 times before they got rid of them. So they are again wearing their jerseys. I could see Matt's face before he froze there. He's like, come on. Yeah, I know it you want to see them more because they look so great, but 6 times is when they're wearing them. A little bit of a shameless self-promotion here, but all that information I put into an article on thebultreport.com. So be sure to go check that if you want to get all those dates, because I'm not going to read them here. That's too many dates to jam into your head. But all that information is on the Bolt Report as well for our website.
The best part of these jerseys are they've got the victory stripes.
That's right. They do have the victory stripe. And that's what people love, the victory stripes.
Very underrated feature. I'm super stoked they brought it back. And also, the lightning bolts. Those are tremendous as well. The waves are great. The rain, whatever. But again, I give it an 11 out of 10. If, I didn't know that they were going on pre-sale. I thought it was, I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to get another one, but I know they're just going to fly off the shelves. And they're going to be close to $300 or something. So if you are
they're not that expensive. They were similar to what a regular price jersey was, which was nice to see.
Okay, well, you know what? Even if you still are a broke fella, kind of like me, I guess you can maybe check out the RBLR shop and get some other lightning swag. If you can't
look at the transition.
I'm only stumbling on my words here, but if you missed the drop or you can't afford it, RBLRshop.com or something like that. It's in the show notes.
Link in the description.
Link in the description. Jake, I'm sorry I stole your thunder. I know you had it lined up, but I saw the opportunity and I went for it.
And don't forget, you can use code BOLTS for 10% off your order. Again, the RBLR shop, link in the description to go check it out. Use code BOLTS for 10% off your order. Now, Matt, you know what? That is another fantastic transition by you. Great assist right there. So I will absolutely take that any day. I love watching
you tapped it in for me.
Die laughing in our background for our producer. But with that said, let's move on to our next topic, which is going to be the upcoming games that we have here. Again, as of this recording, we're recording before the Lightning take on the Ducks at 10 o'clock, another late night game. But let's kind of go through some of these games that the Lightning have upcoming. They've got the Ducks tonight, and then they will have the Sharks on Saturday. That game's at 4:30, so kind of a weird time. And then you have the Ottawa Senators next Tuesday, and then hopefully we'll be back by that point recording our next episode. So just a couple of games in between episodes here: Anaheim, San Jose, and Ottawa. And then, of course, Ottawa starts that home stretch. The Lightning have 1, 2, 3. They have 4 games at home. They take 1 on the road and then 3 more at home again, 1 more on the road, 2 on the home again. So they got a big home stretch coming up. Is basically what I'm trying to say after they finish this West Coast road trip. But Matt, any thoughts on these games coming up here?
One quick thing about these away games coming up is if you like listening on the radio, well, you obviously already know, but if you don't, give it a try because Dave Michigan's got a new away host this year. I don't know if you know this, Jake, but it's Braden Coburn.
That's right. I remember seeing that announcement because I guess I remember that last year, every once in a while, Phil wouldn't be doing the away games, and usually it was the Chief filling in, but Braden Corbin's doing it this year.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. I didn't see that anywhere or anything. I just before I caved and actually bought the Bally Plus subscription before for the Panthers game, I'm done trying to find streams or anything like that. I'll just pay the money. I was listening to the game and I was like, who is this handsome sounding fella? And I couldn't just tell by the voice, and then I heard Mitch say Kobe. I was like, no way. And then the voice completely connected. So I think that's terrific. Everybody loves Braden Coburn. He is one of the best personalities off the ice. There's nothing not to love about him.
He's also doing that show with the what's the show called?
Seth Kushner, the Block Party.
Yes, the Block Party. He's also co-hosting that as well, which I know a lot of people love. So he's been doing a lot with the Lightning, which is cool to see. But yeah, that's a good point to bring up. I did not realize. I forgot that he was doing that again. So good for him though. Be staying involved with the Lightning. I always love to see when former players stick around with the organization. So not sure how long he's planning on, but cheers to him for being on the road broadcast.
Yeah, I'm happy that Seth's got a new podcast partner. I mean, when he was doing it with Dan Girardi is hilarious. If you can listen to some of the early Block Party episode, that's what it's named after, was the Block Party with Dan Girardi, because that guy blocked shots like his life depended on it. And shoot, Coburn wasn't a slouch at that either. So I'm just happy, nothing against Seth or anything. He's a great host, but if you could have another consistent Lightning voice on there, somebody as well spoken as Braden Coburn, terrific, tremendous. Especially pairing him up with Dave Mishkin as well. He's no Phil Esposito, but he's pretty good.
Well, going back into the upcoming games here, I do want to get your thoughts on these as well, Matt. But for me, it's on paper, it's games you feel like the Lightning should win, but as we've seen early in the season, they've kind of struggled a little bit. And I think the key for me is if they can come away with 2 out of 3 on this West Coast road trip, that would be fantastic. But as long as I want to see them getting back into the game. I want to see them playing better. I want to see them playing a full 60 minutes. Like, listen, you're going to lose some games. If you lose some in overtime, if you lose another one on the West Coast, it's going to stink. It is what it is. But I think this is when we want to start see them getting into that groove back, start being a little more consistent maybe instead of kind of all over the place. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Matt, but that's where I'm at for the Lightning right now on at least these next couple of games on the West Coast road trip before this homestand starts.
They've got no reason to lose to either the Sharks or the Ducks. Of course, this will be semi-outdated by the time you're hearing it, but both those teams are in the Bedard sweepstakes. I like the Ducks. I hope they do well. Again, just not against our team.
I don't like the Ducks.
I've got no problem with them. I liked their old guard. I don't really follow them anymore. But we've got no reason to lose to these teams. So I'm going to hope and expect for a great bounce back tonight, especially against San Jose. We really should beat them, especially by a pretty sizable margin. Of course, I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm wishfully thinking, but these are just my expectations for these games. With the Kings game, before heading into that, I was like, it really can go either way. We've had some really good luck against the Kings. With the Ducks and with the Sharks, I'm expecting and I'm hoping for 2 wins.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, but we'll see what happens because as we know in the NHL, that anything can happen. You never know with but before we wrap things up here, Matt, is there anything else that we forgot to mention?
No, I think we've ran a little long here, Jake. So I think we should probably start wrapping things up. I think we.
Hey, I don't think anybody's complaining about some additional RBLR time, right?
I'm not. I'm having fun.
Hey, we appreciate everybody who's been listening this long. If you're still with us, we really appreciate it. If you can, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, follow us, wherever it may be on whatever platform you're listening. We really appreciate it. It really helps us out. Don't forget to follow us at RBLR Sports on Twitter as well. To stay up to date with all the latest scores of the Tampa Bay Sports and see all the other latest podcasts for the Rays, the Bucks, the Rowdies, all those other great shows that we have. Be sure to go check those out as well. It's not just us here at RBLR Lightning. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.